Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So hopefully everyone can hear both of us, but if you can't, just comment and we'll try and fix it. But I was asking just for anybody to write in the comment and say if they liked it or not to start with, like the book, because I know that it was some people really liked it and some people didn't like it. So hopefully some of you guys will share if you liked it or if you didn't. But do you want me to start and do like a quick recap?
Yes. Do like a plot summary.
Okay, so the basic premise and plot summary of the book follows uh, Mileva Merrick. I don't know how to say her
I
name,
think
but
I think you say marriage.
Marriage? That sounds
I
cooler.
don't know.
I'm just
I
gonna
don't.
call her Mileva. So
Okay.
Mileva is starting the first chapter. She's starting her university studies, and she's nervous, studying physics, and she's going to be a teacher and a scholar and an academic in these fields. And in her first class, it's all men, and they're pretty dismissive of her, except for one of the students in the class smiles at her, and she's like, "He's probably terrible." And so then it goes throughout her getting her academic training for a couple years, and during that, that one classmate um, kind of forces friendship with her, and it turns out that that's Albert Einstein. They eventually become friends, and then they eventually become lovers, and then it's the story of their relationship throughout their lives, and not their whole lives, but the beginning, middle of their lives. So it follows their relationship. And it's important to note, as we've noted in a couple of our blog posts and Instagram posts, that people have commented that this is fiction. This isn't even like
Yes.
a historical truth retelling. It's like straight up fiction.
Yeah, it's like the
So,
author speculated a whole bunch
yeah,
about like
so much.
this is something that might have could have happened type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, and then it tells the story of things that we're familiar with about like the paper on the theory of relativity, and but in the book, Mileva and Albert work on it together, and then he takes all the credit for it, and it's just a very toxic and abusive relationship. It explores her from her point of view, her dealing with that. So
Hmm.
that's the recap of the book. And so some people are commenting why they liked it, why they didn't like it.
Yeah.
And the people who like it commented that they liked that it got into the emotions of Mileva, and that she was a good point of view character to explore a new realm of a familiar, not a familiar story, but a familiar character of Albert Einstein that we all know who he is. Other people liked it because they liked the genre. Some people liked it because it celebrated women in science, which is not always a topic in books very often. And then some people didn't like it because they didn't like any of the characters, which was kind of my thing also. I
Yeah,
didn't really like
same.
any of the characters.
Yeah.
And some people didn't like it because of the pacing of the book as well, which I also agree with. I have some pretty strong feelings about that. But
I think I liked it for a lot of the same reasons as other people. Mainly that it's hard to stop reading it. It's hard to put it
yeah.
down.
Hmm.
Like you kind of just are like, what is the new like fresh betrayal on the next page? Like you just like can't stop reading it, kind of. But yeah, I agree with you that there are still some like weak points as well.
Yeah.
So
I would say the weakest aspect of the book for me was the pacing. And because of the pacing, it made the characters feel very one-dimensional, and um things happen to them instead of them doing things, if that makes sense. It was just like,
yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's
yeah,
kind of her, like you want to like her as the main character, but she
right.
doesn't like she does things, but she doesn't do a ton. She lets a lot of things just happen to her.
Right.
And she's kind of, the way she like tells it, it's almost like when you're like writing in your journal, like all emo, like all these terrible things keep happening to me, like
Hmm.
that's a little bit how it reads.
Yeah, and I wonder if part of that also could be like the author trying to set a stage of how women were treated in academia or in general
Yeah.
or are treated in academia still, like those issues of women in fields traditionally dominated by men feeling powerless to change, but also Ashley, I don't remember if it was on something that she commented to us or if I read her Goodreads review, but she was like, the worst part was when Maleva's mom was like, you need to make this relationship work because of your baby. And I was like, that's like opposite advice.
Yeah.
That's not what you should do. And I
Right.
was like, so frustrated. But I think it's just setting the stage of like cultural and time period expectations of what women were supposed to be.
Right. Like the author very well could be aware that her character is like kind of submissive. And like maybe she's trying to make a statement about that's like how women were like cultured to be at that time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, but it could be that.
Little bit of Liz says she keeps saying early that she's trying to be who he wants, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's dumb. And I was like, it is dumb. And also, I hated that I could see the type of person that Albert was going to be later in the book at the beginning when he's like inviting himself over, and she's like, don't, and he's not respecting her.
Yeah.
It's just those tiny ways, and I'm like, girl, get out of it.
Yeah, that kind of
It's so tough.
goes with
It's
that
so hard.
question that you wanted to ask about like what advice would you guys tell her in chapter 1 like that like because we can see all these red flags from the outside,
Hmm.
but I think like her lack of confidence like prohibits her from seeing these red flags. Like she's
Yeah.
just like thrilled that someone is like into her and like even if he's like not even from the beginning not a great relationship, like
Well, at the beginning,
it's hard for her to see that because she
right.
lacks like confidence in herself.
She's just in, right, and she's in this world where she has to constantly be like proving herself, proving her worth, and she's gotten so far by being just kind of away from others, and so allowing someone into her life is a brand new thing, and navigating that would be scary, especially if you have someone that isn't supportive like you think he
Hmm.
is.
Yeah.
Because if it was someone lovely and wonderful who supported her, like Marie Curie's husband, it like later in the book, that was the saddest part to me actually, because they go and meet Marie Curie,
Hmm.
and she's like, oh well, my husband kind of rocks, sorry,
Yeah,
and
that was
Maleva's
like
like,
it's like
oh man,
oh
what could have my life have been? What could my life have been? And that was just heartbreaking
yeah.
me.
Yeah, she
But
had
anyway,
I
yeah,
always like when there's like a cameo in a book from like
I
a
know, I
real
always like it too.
character. I was like, woo. But yeah, she like that part was like really heartbreaking. You're like, wow, like she could have
It's
had
so
this
sad.
great experience as well. But
Yeah. So I wanted to ask again what everyone's advice to her would be. Like, chapter
mhm.
one, you read this book, now you're going back in time and you're like, girl, let me tell you something. And we had some pretty good responses, so I'll read a
Okay.
couple of them. But Jalen, don't have premarital sex ever and invest in birth control, which I mean, that was a huge issue,
Yeah.
and probably the most infuriating part actually of their relationship to me was how inconvenienced Albert felt by her pregnancy with
Right.
little
He
girl, and I
took
was like,
he
you
took
are the
no
one.
like responsibility at all and
So
it
gross.
made me like so angry at men, even though I know that not every man is like that, It's just
Hmm.
like while I was reading it, I was like, oh, like why is this like the woman's thing? and like the man is
So
so like
off.
no string is attached. But I know that's not like the norm or anything, but
Yeah.
that was probably like my most like angry part.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
continue, go ahead.
Natalie said that her advice would be that you are here and you are capable of greatness and don't go to coma with Einstein.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, building her up and being like, you know this stuff, you feel this in your bones.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let that be diminished by someone else.
Yes.
Brianna, stay focused. Caroline, don't let their judgment get you down. You're smarter than most of the young men in there. Ashley, mustaches are not cute. Sydney, I don't know if there's anything anyone could have said to change things. I would say to be confident, but she already struggled with insecurities. I wouldn't. I wouldn't tell her to watch out for men. She would have believed anyone. She wouldn't have believed anyone could love her. And I think that kind of goes to the point. Like, it's sad, but they have. And she talks about this with her friend Helena, I think, where she's like, I wouldn't have. Like, if someone told me to not do this, I wouldn't have done it because it's like you don't believe anyone that's not you. You're not in that
Yeah.
relationship with them.
Oh, I kind of forgot about that part.
Yeah. Anyway, what would you tell her in chapter 1?
Kind of like what Sydney said. I feel like she nailed it. Like, she was like just lacking kind of like self-confidence that could have protected her from letting all these bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes bad things just happen anyway. But
Right.
like she was so quick to just be whatever he wanted her to be and like let him walk all over her. And if she was like confident enough and was like willing to risk losing him,
Mm-hmm.
then she could have protected herself more.
I just have been watching Queer Eye, and I just want the Queer Eye guy to come to her and be like, honey, you are good exactly
Yeah,
how
she
you
needs
are,
it.
and you don't need, she just needs to believe it for herself that so that she does feel like she can stand up for herself because she wants to, but she just is threatened. I mean, very literally, like Albert is threatening towards her, especially at the end of the book, that she's feels trapped. But then, spoiler alert, at the end when she's able to go off on her own with her children, it was like really great that she finally was like, no, I need to do this for me.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline says, I think the turning point was when her friend fell for that guy. Otherwise, she might have stayed true to their pact. What do you think?
Oh, did her friend like leave their pact first?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, okay. So
Because it was like they had their friendship academia pact,
yes.
and then they made that pact because Maleva was spending so much time with Albert, and they're like, no, remember, this is our jam,
Right.
academics. And then the friend found the guy, and she was like, no, it's okay, it's fine, do
Yeah,
your thing.
you definitely could say that's like a turning point because like
Yeah.
Mileva will kind of do whatever other people tell her to do sometimes. So like if her friend like really made her hold to that pact, like maybe she would have been in a little bit better shape
Yeah.
relationship wise.
Yeah. It was interesting to have the book from her point of view, I thought, because she didn't really do anything ever. She always just thought about doing things, which is, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, why she was in that point of view, but it was still really sad because you could see all of her thoughts about everything, but then her action was nothing, which was
Right.
just sad.
And she probably just didn't feel empowered as a woman to do that type of
Yeah.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is like the narrative today is like girls support girls and like we want women to like feel empowered so that like this history of things like this happening will stop,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And
Yeah.
obviously things are way better now for the most part, but like I think some women still feel not empowered,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So
Yeah. And even in like relationships, I feel like women don't feel they feel like they won't be loved if they're a certain way, but really the
mhm.
whole thing of is like be who you want to be and do what you want to do, and the people who really love and support you will do that, and those who don't, you don't need them.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing to teach yourself to believe too, I think.
Yeah.
Um, Alyssa said, "Do you guys know what parts are true? Like I know Albert and Mileva divorced in real life. What else?" I was looking into this a little bit
Some.
and like I don't know everything, but I think the like marriage contract that he wrote, like the
Mhm.
terms, that was true.
Mhm.
Um, she was a physicist and did go like she was like a brilliant scientist and it's just like speculated that she could have contributed to the theory of relativity,
Mhm.
but no one knows. So like that is like the huge plot point that is like a huge if. Like we don't know to
Right. And
what extent or if at all,
which
or
I
if it was
think
all
the
her. We don't know.
question that fictional story
Yeah,
around that
around that. Yeah.
question.
Which makes me think so yeah, unfortunately I don't really know what
I'm
else is
working
true.
I'm working on a blog post about this that I will post
Okay.
on our website. Is that I've been doing some research just and that's I've kind of found the same kind of stuff. There's not a ton about their relationship, but all of their letters to each other are
Yeah.
available on public domain, which I'm like, I don't have time to read that right now, but I probably
But
will.
they're there.
But
Yeah.
that's interesting to me, and I want to find like a nonfiction book about him or her or them to read.
Yeah. The poll that we did was like, are you okay with like the speculation and like the drama added in this book, or do you wish it was like a true story? And 90% wished they could have read a true story.
Hmm.
So maybe everyone needs to find that book that you're gonna read.
Let's
And I'll
all
read
share.
it too. Like we should
Let's
all
all
find the true.
everyone post, find your true stories of it. But
Yeah.
I think that the cool thing to take away from a book like this that's highly fictionalized question about someone in history is like, yeah, we know that Albert Einstein was married. What was she like? That's what's missing from a lot of history is like we celebrate
Yes.
so many men who contributed, especially in the STEM fields, but often they were married or they had female partners that they were working with professionally, and we don't know anything about them. And I
Right.
think that's a cool thing to have our interest piqued about this woman.
Yeah, and all we really can do, unfortunately, is speculate because
Hmm.
there aren't the records, but like for other people in history, we might be able to learn more about the wives and the women.
Hmm.
It makes me think of that movie Big Eyes. Did you see that?
Yeah, with Amy
With
Adams and
Amy
Kristen
Adams.
Walsh.
She's like an artist and her husband
Yes.
like claims
Hmm.
that all of her work was his.
It
Like
was so infuriating
that's
to
everyone
watch.
should watch that movie too and
Yeah.
have the same rage as they had while reading this book. And that's like I think a better documented story, right?
Hmm.
This is
Yeah.
more recent, so we
Yeah,
know a little bit
that
more
happened in the
about her.
60s. Yeah.
Right.
So there are
Yeah.
more like actual factual
Yes.
things about that.
So Big Eyes with Amy Adams. Everyone should watch that movie. It's really good. Um,
Yeah. I was going to ask also, I wanted to ask your opinion on who you thought was the best character. Because we kind of talked about we don't really love any of them.
yeah. I
Are
did
there
like
any?
her mom. Like I know someone said they were like mad at the mom and the advice that she gave, but I kind of like her in that she was like she kind of was like a confident woman in that she like stuck to her guns, you know, and
Hmm.
she wasn't afraid to like reprimand, but also or like sympathize depending on what was right in that situation. So I felt she was like kind of different from her daughter.
Hmm. Alyssa says Lisa wins, and I'm like, yeah,
She didn't have
oh,
time to
so
mess up.
sad, so sad. And
Yeah.
I think I agree with someone else who wrote that. I think it was Ashley who said that Hans Albert was the best character. I think that's probably true. I also liked, I don't remember his name, but like their partner who was in their class with them and then helped. Albert with some papers and then was like, "Oh, isn't Mileva supposed to be on this paper?" And Albert's
Oh,
like, and Mileva's like, "Guess
yeah.
not." And it was, and like the scene was like, the tension in the air was palpable, and I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe that guy had some integrity. So I forgot his
I
name.
I forgot his name too. Not enough to really stand up for her, but enough to be like, something's not right here. But
He
this
had a
seems
more
like a
a
marriage
hint of a
problem.
moral compass. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wrote a kind of long blog post about when it's okay to like use a real person and like tell a story about them.
Hmm.
So we're not probably not going to get into that too much, but I know that was like a huge beef that people had with this book was like these are real people, like how dare the author just make up whatever she wanted. So I would encourage everyone to read my blog post. Not that it's like perfect or anything, but like it's just
That's
kind of
really
my
good.
perception on telling real people's stories, which is what I do for
Hmm.
like a living. So I've learned a lot doing it, and I think like some of the principles apply. So I think my like main point of that blog post was just that we need to be aware as the readers and like have a little bit of skepticism and like empathy for real people because they aren't there to stand up for themselves to say
Hmm.
this is my story, what actually happened. So we can, I think it's okay to read this book and enjoy it and get mad and like feel everything while we're reading it, but we also need to just not take it as fact and just be aware that like it's a story and she crafted the
Using
story
characters. Yeah.
using real people and they aren't able to defend themselves. So we need to just
Yeah.
keep that in mind. But that
It
was my
was a
main
really good blog
point of that,
post.
I guess.
It was a
Thank you.
good blog post. Uh, um, we have a comment that just came in. I think
Yes.
that's the example everyone loves and reveres Greatest Showman, but the character of the woman who supposedly ruins him in real life was a wonderful person and philanthropist. Yeah. Anytime
Right.
there's any art or anything created about someone real, that's part of it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fair to give that person like to do the research as much as you can or to at least just recognize that this is a piece of
Mhm.
art and it could have been manipulated.
Yeah.
So,
That was a good discussion.
yeah, I feel like we covered, did we cover everyone's questions? I think we did.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if
cool.
you have any last questions, send them
Yeah,
in.
Sydney
We'll.
said it's also been speculated that Einstein was on the autistic spectrum. That changed my view on him a bit. Yeah, that's an interesting
Hmm,
thing that
I didn't.
might cause your like sympathy to change a little bit. So
Yeah,
that's interesting.
not me. But no, it's a really interesting caveat that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for this one.
Yeah.
But we'll finish up some blog posts this month. I'm working on the one about maybe some real life facts, and then a list. I'm working on a list of some of my favorite books that were written by women because it's
Cool.
Women's History Month. And then next month is, what book
Bel
are we reading?
Canto.
Oh yeah, Bel Canto by Ann Patchett. I'm really
Kylie picked
excited.
this one.
I picked
And I
it.
had great intentions of reading it while I was on my vacation, but I didn't. So I started it today. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I read
good so
it
far.
last year, I think, and it was one of my top, maybe 2 years ago, and it was one of my top books of the year.
Yeah.
I love it. So I'm excited that we can all talk about it next month.
And we're gonna have an extra special giveaway.
Oh yeah, we are. So get
So
pumped.
get excited.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks
have
everybody.
a great time. Thank you, everybody. It is so fun to read your comments about books that we're reading. This is why we did it, is because we just wanted to like more people to like tell us what they thought about the same books. So
Yes.
fun.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Thank
thank you,
you.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.